As cinematographers, we're always limited by one thing: how much gear we can actually bring with us on set. But what if there was a light that could handle a wide range of uses, work with modifiers you already own, run off of USB-C battery, and add less than 1 pound to your kit? Now that's the kind of solution that gets my attention. So when I saw the Amaran Halo 100X, I had to test it and see if it actually earned a place into my kit. Let's dive right in. Before I dive into the details of this particular light, I wanted to show you this setup because it's very representative of what I think is the best use of that light. I wanted to create something a little warm, a little cozy, me reading a book in this little corner with the ambient of the lamp, like a warm light bulb. And so this is shot during the day, but I use a lot of ND filters, bring all the levels down in the room and turn the lamp on. And then I needed to add something to bring levels up a little bit, to bring the key light on the side of my face up a little bit and just raise the overall levels, but in a way that still feels like it's coming from that lamp. So obviously it's not coming from the lamp. This is a regular lamp with a regular light bulb. And I just use the Halo 100X. And because it's so light, because it's so small, I can use a boom arm and extend it over an area where I need it. And it's narrow enough, it's small enough, and I can just adjust the intensity using the app and get to the levels that I need. And it's just a great little light for those type of situations. In my line of work, in the corporate film world, everything is attached to the type of equipment that we can bring with us because I have to travel everywhere. That means I have to bring all of my equipment. And so from the size of the stands that I use to the type of lights that I purchase, everything is vetted through, is it possible for me to travel with that equipment? Or what is it going to do to my overall traveling by adding this particular piece of equipment? So when I was asked to do a review on this particular light, I was excited just because of the size. I was at least curious. I have already the 200X, the Amaran 200X. I have the Amaran 360C, and I have an Amaran tube light, the 2-foot tube light. But let's be honest, like most of us, you know, we would love to have more lights. Like we never feel like we have enough. And so if I can find a space and a use for this, then yeah, I would totally take a peek at it. So the light itself is made out of plastic, but is very nicely built and feels very, very strong. What's interesting is the bracket that it comes with is actually made out of metal. This one feels very, very sturdy. It also tilts 90 degrees either way. So when you attach the light, you can just easily tilt the light whatever way you want. It has a Boeing mount integrated in it, which allowed me to use the modifiers that I already own, whether it's my softbox, the cone, or any other modifiers. I didn't have to buy anything different. I can just plug them directly into this light and I'm good to go. Now, I did end up buying more modifiers for specific use for this particular light, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now, this is a bicolor light. This is the X. This is not an RGB light, so there's no other colors. The color temperature on this light, the range is 2700 Kelvin all the way to 6500 Kelvin. So that's nice. You can go from very, very warm to a very, very blue light. It also increased in intensity by 1%. So you have full control over the intensity. One of the main features that I was excited about this light was the power supply, because you can use the provided power supply and run it off an outlet, or you can plug it USB-C to a battery pack. And I purchased the Amaran Peak battery. At 100% intensity, I can run this light on that battery for about an hour. And to me, that's great. That has really helped our setup. It doesn't come with the light, so those are things that you need to add to the kit. But to me, it made a lot of sense to have a battery solution with a light this small, because that's really where it becomes very interesting. And the reality is, if you look at the setup that I did in my living room of me reading that book, if you look at the stand itself, so I have the light attached to the end of the stand, and then the battery I actually use as a counterweight in the pouch, and I just bought a very long USB-C cable. It doesn't work like the Panolight series of Amaran, where the Peak battery plugs into the back of or at the bottom of the light fixture and provided power through that connection. On this one, you still need to use a USB-C There's a fan on the back of the light to keep the light cool, and that fan has a couple different modes that you can use. I leave it on smart mode, and it manages its cooling itself, and it's really quiet. I actually have never even noticed the sound of it, whether we're shooting in interview settings or in B-roll. I never actually noticed that the fan turned on or off. I just leave it on smart mode. I don't have to worry about the noise level, which is good. So where are some of the best usage of this light? Well, for me, it goes down to using it as a backlight, as an edge light, as an overhead light, or as an accent light in small little corners, because I can just mount it easily, whether it's in a tight space or inside of a corner. So those are some of the most versatile uses of that particular light. I couldn't do that with my 360. I can't do that with the 200X, but with this, I can easily mount it in all those different setups and use it in all those different ways. Let's take a look at a real world example on a recent shoot. I knew I wanted to try to use this as an overhead light with a lantern, a China lantern. And I bought a China lantern, and I bought the smallest one that I could find, and it's still a little too big. I feel like I don't have the stand to hang that high enough. Like, that lantern is just so big. And so I ended up buying the Amaran Space Light, which is typically used for studio. It provides even lighting all around it and overhead underneath it. And so a lot of time you see them hanging in studios to kind of flood an entire space. And what I like about the Space Light, or the idea of the Space Light, the reason why I bought it is there is no frame to it. The problem with the lantern is it's got this metal frame that you cannot collapse. And so now you're left with a 2 foot, 3 foot long frame that there's nothing you can do. It doesn't fold more than that. So you have to find that space for it in your kit. With the Space Light, there's no frame. It's just fabric. And so you can crumble it into a small little pouch and fit it just about anywhere. The downside of it was it's a very long, I think it's 27 inches or 28 inches long cylinder. And again, I would need to hang it really high up so that it just drops, 26, 28 inches. And but because it's fabric and it provides you, when you purchase it, it comes with little clips to attach a neg around the area that you don't want to send light to. I use those little clips and crumble the cylinder into a much smaller cylinder. And the beauty is it weighs nothing, so I can easily attach it. It goes over the cone, so I put you put the cone and then you attach it to this fixture, and it barely adds any weight to it. So now I can hang it above a small table where maybe people are working or interacting with each other, looking at documents, and it provides enough level around the entire table and on the table itself. So now I don't have to move lighting. Once I put this in place, I can move around and frame single shots and wide shots without having to move the light. I used to use my 360C, and then I would take a single shot and then move around, move the light to the next person. But then it would be difficult to kind of keep track of where the previous light was coming from. Like, is it coming from the right or to the left? Because I don't want to switch the source of the light in all of my shots. And so with this setup, it really works really well to just put the Space Light with this Halo 100X above the table. And what I didn't really think about is it also then provides that top down to the table. And now I can get some nice close-up shots of people flipping pages and looking at charts, and that's already lit from the same light. And so that's been really, really good. Now, again, this is 100 watt. It's not 200 watts. It's not 300 watts. But as you can tell in this particular example, I'm able to do that in broad daylight with a lot of windows, and it did provide me enough levels. Now, I always wish I could have more levels, but it worked, and it worked really well. I just thought that setup was so much easier for me. And again, by using the battery, I'm able to do that without having to run cables anywhere. And so it just turned into a very, very useful tool. I also use it in this example. This was the first time I used that light was in this cubicle, and I placed it right next to the person. And I think I like the results, but it does give me a little too much light coming down on the cubicle. So like the corner of that cubicle looks very, very lit, which is fine. Like typically they're very dark, so I like the idea of adding some levels in that corner, but it does, it did make it a little too much. So I need to either add more diffusion at the bottom of the space light when I do that, or use the neg to kind of cut some of it. I also have like an ND net that maybe I could use to kind of limit how much level comes from underneath the space light that hits that cubicle. But the level on the subject's face was perfect. But that was a great first test of like, man, this is a good little setup. Now, obviously, by having the battery, I can also use it handheld, which I haven't done yet. But I think the idea of being able to just grab that light and hold it and walk with it, for example, is just a great advantage, another great tool for me to have in my kit that I just didn't have in the past. So, you know, before that, my only option would have been to use a bounce board or a reflector, which works great during the day. But if I want to shoot anything at night, walking or something like that, then I can easily grab that, you know, turn it into a pretty soft, low level intensity and have somebody walk with it. And that creates my lighting. If there's any negative about this light is the fact that it comes without a cover. So the monolight is actually exposed, which I think is insane, especially for a light that is designed for traveling. All my other lights, whether the 200X or the 360C, came with a protective cap to put on top of that monolight. So I was able to purchase one off-brand on Amazon, and it's a bone mount, so it just fits perfectly on there. Now, this one is a little thick. I believe that they make some that are a little bit smaller. So I got to go back and look and see if I can find a thinner one. So if you're a cinematographer that works in corporate films, or you work on a lot of traveling videos, or maybe even in the wedding business, and you need a battery solution to maybe walk around with a light on a dance floor, for example, I would encourage you to try the Halo 100X, because I was happily surprised. It actually ended up being one of those tools that I didn't expect to use that much. I thought I would just put it in my kit and maybe once in a while I would bring it out, but it's actually finding its way into a lot of my setups. So yeah, this light definitely earned its place into my kit. Now, if this feels like something that you could fit into your workflow, go check out the links in the description. And if you end up using this light on your own setup, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. So drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy filming.